Hello, Facebook land, Nordonomi's YouTube tribe, and beyond. Tyro Wiltsey coming at you on a snowy Utah day. I don't know if you can see the snow coming down out here. The window's getting pretty clouded up. But I wanted to do a timely winter driving video. The first one, the chickens and squirrels and cats and whatever else were throwing the focus off. So hopefully there'll be less interference with this one. We'll see, right? There's people pulling in and out behind me, but I'm doing my best. So very first thing when doing winter driving is visibility. You absolutely must be able to see out your windshield, your rear view mirrors, that kind of stuff. And here's a good example of that not being the case. This is what happens in snowy conditions. This fogs up, this covers up with snow. This is starting to fog from condensation and temperature differential. Same over here. And when you're driving, stuff like that can make it difficult to see. It can take your attention away from the road. It can cause all sorts of problems. So what do you do about that? Well, recommendation number one, again, if you saw the first video, some of this will be recap. Recommendation number one is get Rain-X. Rain-X comes in a squeeze applicator, a spray applicator, or windshield washer fluid is usually the easiest way. You put in the windshield washer fluid, the all season is orange and the winter season is purple. So they're very easy to identify at the AutoZone or what else do we have here? AutoZone, O'Reilly. I think we have Napa here as well. These are the auto parts stores where you can go and get this stuff. I recommend you get it there. Home Depot and Lowe's also, I believe, have it. But you usually pay a premium if you go big box versus if you just go to the auto parts store to get it. You can also order it in bulk. I'm sure Amazon has it if you prefer that route. But this Rain-X is a clear wax, which will help keep the condensation off of the windshield. So since I'm getting condensation in here, I know that my Rain-X application is worn off and it's time to redo it this year. And so I just need to go grab the spray bottle, spray it up, wash it like I would be cleaning a regular cleaning of the window, and we're good to go. The next bit is defrosters. So I'm going to turn on the truck here. Pardon the noise while everything starts up. But the first thing that happened was my windshield wipers went. So the windshield wipers, see how it's kind of missing a little spot over there? So that tells me that that windshield wiper blade is wearing out. See how it goes there? And then it did clear off the windshield pretty well, but I've still got some of these spots where I'm getting fogging. So then I look down at my control panel and I see that this right here is my front defroster and this is my rear defroster. Results may vary, but know where your defrosters are at, know how to adjust your temperatures. So this is independent temperature settings on each side. And while I got you facing this way, we can go over here and talk about auto four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. That's for high and that's for low. So you have, when you have these newer vehicles, a lot of the times they will give you a automatic, and I'm just going to turn this off while we're talking. They'll give you an automatic, they call it all-wheel drive, or they call it traction control, or things like that. And essentially, a computer is trying to give you defensive driving capabilities, but unless you know how it works, and this is why I wanted to find a snowy parking lot to show you that having the things, just because you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, does not mean you're going to slip. It just means when you slip, all four wheels are slipping. In some form or another. Same with four-wheel drive. Just because you have four-wheel drive doesn't mean that you are invincible on the roads. A lot of people try it, and a lot of trucks especially will end up off the side of the road because the back end is very light and people haven't put in sandbags or something else to weight it down. So they lose traction and then they can't get traction back and off they go. Also, the smaller vehicles, the smart cars, the Teslas are pretty heavy, but the hybrids are kind of light by comparison, and they're made of lighter materials because of the heavier battery bank, so on and so forth. So know your vehicle and know the driving conditions you're in. And one of the ways to tell whether or not there is freezing conditions around is keep in mind the rule of 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius is going to give you freezing temperatures. But you can have snow up to almost 40 degrees and down to 25 degrees or lower Fahrenheit. I'm not sure the Celsius, 0 to minus whatever it is, 5 maybe. But knowing these metrics is going to give you an idea. A lot of like my truck, it's 20 years old, but it still has a thermometer. Excuse me. It still has a thermometer that says, okay, it's getting there. And it'll give me a little snow signal when it's like, hey, there's enough moisture and it's cold enough for there to be snow, ice, these other things. One of the things that a lot of people are surprised by is there can be liquid moisture and frozen moisture on the road at the same time. So just because you're getting spray from other vehicles, that's a great way to tell whether there's liquid or ice on the road. If you're getting spray from other vehicles, chances are good that it's above freezing, or at least the conditions are above freezing because they've applied a salt or a de-icing mix or something like that, even sand, if you're off on more rural roads. But you can still slip in those conditions. You can hydroplane, which is where the tire is not in contact with the pavement surface anymore and it's going right across the water. This is where defensive driving, the practical application of it, is crucial, because how do you know when that's happening? What does it feel like? And what do you do when it happens? These are things that I can't across the board answer for you, but I've had over 1 million miles of driving under my belt for work and recreation and different things. Yes, an actual 1 million miles. I drove a lot for work. Not a trucker, a independent contractor and engineering inspector for a decade plus. Because it comes up, so I answer it. Right, so visibility and maneuverability are key. The other thing is the nuances of it. So, and I'll get more into it when I do the practical video. Again, I've got to find a parking lot wide enough and slippery enough to really give a good demonstration. But for the purposes of this video, I'll give you kind of the philosophy of it. So what happens a lot of times is people will have either a front-wheel drive vehicle. Those are pretty common. They'll have a rear-wheel drive vehicle, very common in trucks. This is a rear-wheel drive truck, and most trucks are rear-wheel drive. Most cars are front-wheel drive. Then there's an all-wheel drive, which could be an electronic thing, or it could actually be a mechanical thing where in this truck, 20-year-old truck, you have a front differential and a rear differential in reverse order. Front differential, rear differential. And you toggle between those with different settings. You can do it manually. You can do it through the auto feature on here. But that doesn't mean that when it's an auto four-wheel drive, that it will always kick into four-wheel drive as soon as you need it. It also doesn't mean that you're not going to slip on all four wheels at the same time. It just means that you have more opportunity, more chances for traction. And that's one of the key things is traction. So it gives you an opportunity for that traction. So when I have, for instance, my four-wheel drive on, let's say I'm doing four-wheel drive high because I'm trying to do freeway speeds in inclement weather. I don't recommend that, but four-wheel drive low is geared too low for most travel on freeways, even if you're doing 30 or 40. So if you're going through the neighborhood and it's really bad, you can put it in 4-wheel drive low and move around accordingly. If you need to get onto a major road and it's moving a little quicker, but conditions are still a little sparse and shoddy, you can do the 4-wheel drive high, or you can let the computer decide, is it going to do 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive as needed? Or you can keep it in 2-wheel drive and then only get into 4-wheel drive as you determine you need it, which is usually what I do. It's a little more advanced of a driving technique because I know what my back end slipping feels like. It's a 20-year-old truck. I've had it for over 5 years now. I've got a good idea what the capabilities of the truck are. Also, I have wood or snow or stuff that I load into the back, so I get more weight on it, and more weight tends to give you more traction. Usually. Sometimes it can work against you. And this is where some of the systems, like the, what do they call it? With the Tesla, there's regenerative braking, but then with, I forget what they call it, ABS, auto braking system. So when you hit the brakes in a newer vehicle, and I think this one has it too. Yeah, it tripped me out because I was like, what in the world is happening? So when you hit the brakes and the system senses that you're starting to slide, it will actually feather or multiply tap the brakes. It'll hit the brakes multiple times trying to get you that traction. But what that means is where your stopping distance, even with slip, would be about this much, now your stopping distance is like this much. It's a big difference. But if you don't know that, you're going to hit the brakes when you have this much room, and it's going to take you this much room, which means you're going to run into somebody or something, or you're going to have to roll into an intersection you don't want to, things like that. So always give yourself more following distance when road conditions are inclement. My key rule is at least double it. If it's really bad, triple it. And honestly, if you're having to triple your following distance, maybe you shouldn't be on the road in the first place. Maybe pull over, let the plows come through, that kind of thing. Go with somebody who's more experienced, whatever it is. So following distance and stopping distance, be mindful of those. And this is why I recommend you go and practice, because how do you know when your car has 5 people in it or 1 person in it, or it's loaded up with a bunch of stuff, or it's not loaded up with a bunch of stuff? How far does it take you to stop? Better to find out in an empty parking lot. There's a lot of LDS church parking lots that don't get plowed most of the week, so you can go test out your skills there and test out slip and recovery and stuff like that. But also, what do you do when that stuff happens and you have no foundation for it? You're there and you're in the moment, and oh my goodness, stuff's happening. So I recommend you practice. Snow like this makes it a lot easier to get that practice time in, because I'm in Mill Creek. I'm looking right at the mountains, and I came back to Mill Creek from, what was it, basically Holiday, so a little further south and east of here, and it was snowing super hard in Holiday, but it's not hardly snowing here in Mill Creek. And so here we are. I don't have slippery roads to drive on, but I'm safer, and there's more room in the parking lot, that kind of thing. I'm trying to keep this around 15 minutes or so. So let's see here. I think the last bit would be, we covered 4-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is essentially just a digital version of 4-wheel drive. Sarah's Beamer, her BMW from 2011, has all-wheel drive, but it's gearing, and it's also an electronic system, versus a manually adjustable 4-wheel drive system with differentials versus limited slip axles, stuff like that. Again, more technical than the 101 stuff. Visibility, recap. Get your washer fluid. Get Rain-X in it. Get your windows and mirrors. That's one of the things people don't think about a lot, is get your mirrors cleaned up. That way you have visibility in every direction you can. Even clean your interior mirror. Chances are pretty good you don't need to put the defogging spray on it, but if you need to, have it. Rear view window, you need to be able to see out of it. Side windows, you need to be able to see out of them. So just go around, get everything at least on the outside. I recommended getting it on the inside, especially with the Rain-X, because that's going to eliminate or at least reduce the amount of fog. If you have a lot of very passionate conversations, you're going to put all that foggy breath out into the air, and it's going to fog up your windows. If you get into the car or truck after being outside and you're covered in water and you start warming up, all of that's going to go onto your windows and start to fog them up. So if you have a long drive, and some of you do, into Norda or wherever you're headed, plan accordingly. Oh, and then the one little pro tip, because you got all the way to the end, you made it, is roll your window down. It can be this one or the other one. Roll it down just a little bit. If you roll it down too much, you'll get spray and other stuff on you. But if you roll it down just a little bit, it'll help maintain a low moisture, and it'll also make it so it doesn't get too warm inside the cab, which will lead to dew points, condensation, fogging, all the rest of that stuff. So just roll your window down just a little bit, just enough to get the airflow going, and that'll help reduce the fog in there. You can leave your jacket on. You can do whatever you need to with that. Following distance, remember, if your stopping distance in dry conditions is this much, in wet conditions it's this much, in icy conditions it's this much, and if you apply the auto brake system to that, like look, it's like that much. It's crazy. It's a lot. So plan accordingly. Please let Dr. Sarah Marie, Dr. B-Dubs, as she's often known, know if you have any questions or concerns. Let her know, or let me know, if you would like to have some defensive driving lessons. I'm offering those to the Nordicom students and anybody else who would like to kind of get familiar with their vehicle in these weather conditions, be a little safer, be a little smarter. And, you know, defensive driving is the best solution for keeping you safe on these roads, because there's people that, number one, think they know how to drive on these roads and don't, and they make a big old mess out of everything. There's folks that don't know how to drive on these roads but still try to. And there's folks that know they don't know how to drive on these roads but have convinced themselves that there's no other way, and they create issues accordingly. Like, these people just cruise by way too fast for road conditions. They're probably going to slip into each other and have a wreck. If you can see it coming, if you can give good following distance, even if you're the slowest person on the road and people are having to go around you, if you're driving at a speed and maneuvers that are safe for you, do it. Slow and go. Just remember, slow and go. Because rapid adjustments of the wheel or rapid acceleration of the brakes or the gas is what's going to cause that slip and that spin out and that big mess. Don't get in a big mess. Or if you do, know how to get out of it. But try not to get into a big mess. Yeah, and then the next video will be on actually getting into a slip or a slide and getting out of it. Because this truck is great at slipping and sliding. It's also great at getting out of it because I have tools for that. But this is something I do with myself every single year. Even as skilled as I am, I take my truck out, I take the Beamer out, whatever vehicle out, and I test it out in a parking lot to refresh my memory on what it's like, but also vehicles change. The feeling of it changes, the steering of it changes, the visibility, all these other things change. And if you don't know, then when it comes to an emergent situation or a challenging one, or somebody else is having an emergency and you're having to get around it or plan for it, there you go. Last bit, carry a winter weather kit, gloves, coat, water. Just keep yourself in a safe space. There's roadside assistance and the rest of that. But when stuff gets crazy, and it's probably going to get pretty crazy this year, you could be out there for hours before anybody can get to you. Sad but true. So either know how to get yourself out and or have multiple people and resources to help you get out, and or don't go out in the first place, and or be prepared if you do get stuck and have to wait it out. I love you all. Thank you for listening and paying attention, but also taking on some of these skills and being a safer, better driver for yourself and other people on the road. Namaste and blessings. Peace, love, and dopamine. Y'all have a good one. Bye.